statutory public information meeting held under Section 34 and 39 of the Planning Act for rezoning application Z-04-2017 submitted by Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Durham to permit a country festival fundraising event as a temporary use on the property located at 1401 Scugog Line 6. It is important that the public express their view either in person or in writing prior to decisions being made by council. If you wish to file an appeal of council's decision to the Ontario Municipal Board on this file, you must first speak to the matter at this public meeting or provide a written submission before a zoning bylaw amendment is passed. If you don't, you will not be added as party to a hearing by the OMB unless the board determines that there are reasonable grounds to do so. Public notice was served by the Township of Scugog in accordance with the requirement of the Planning Act. And before we go ahead and get started, I skipped the disclosure of pecuniary interest, so I'll ask now of council if anyone has that. Okay, pardon me for that. Now, Rob, please, and Ms. Knutson, please proceed with your presentation.
Hello, Madam Mayor and Council. As mentioned, we are here to discuss the zoning bylaw amendment application Z-04-2017. This is to temporarily rezone the subject lands of 1401 Scugog Line 6 to allow a country festival fundraising event as a permitted use between the dates of September 20th, 2017 to September 27th, 2017. A report was provided to Council last week for review, but I will just touch on a few of the main points. On May 24th of 2017, staff met with the applicants to discuss the proposed fundraising festival for Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Durham. It was determined at this time by staff that the current zoning of lands did not permit such a use. As tickets had already been sold, staff informed the applicants that they would be required to submit an application for temporary rezoning. This application was received on June 21st, 2017 and deemed complete on June 22nd. In regards to the festival itself, the applicant has proposed to host the event at the rear of the existing industrial building. They will provide two tents, one for the event being 9,000 square feet, and another that is 1,800 square feet for the buffet and bar services. They will also provide 15 portable washrooms, and all of this will be enclosed by temporary fencing. If the opinion of staff is the application meets or is consistent with all of the present higher-level planning documents, such documents being the provincial policy statements of 2014, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Durham's official plan, and the Township of Scugog's official plan. Such documents provide overarching goals of each of the appropriate levels and essentially look to establish long-term objectives. As such, a country festival, especially one proposed on temporary nature, isn't really covered in such documents. That being said, the proposed event will create a unique economic opportunity, and more importantly, will not sacrifice the long-term industrial nature of the property in question. It can therefore be viewed as being consistent with the goals and objectives of these previously mentioned documents. Obviously, the purpose of this application is to temporarily rezone the property as a country festival, as a country festival is currently not a permitted use under the Township Zoning Bylaw 1414 document. While staff supports this temporary rezoning, we would ask the applicant to enter into an agreement to implement conditions under which will be permitted, that will be reflected by the proposed site plan, and also identify other operational matters. We would also ask for financial securities to be provided to repair any damages to the partially constructed Scugog Line 6. That being said, I understand this is a charity event and council may wish to waive this requirement. As discussed in this report, moving forward, should the applicant look to continue this festival on an annual basis, their options include renewing the temporary use, essentially repeating this process every year, or apply for a permanent rezoning to allow country festival as a permitted use. Were this to be done, staff anticipate that this would require amendments to the Region's OP, the Township's OP, as well as the Zoning Bylaw 1414 document. As it stands now, this application was internally circulated with only the Community Services Department, Engineering, providing comments. These comments were summarized in the provided report, and they're centered upon the ongoing reconstruction of Scugog Line 6 and how the proposed festival can potentially compromise this. With that being said, it is the opinion of staff that the rezoning application conforms with all applicable planning policy documents. Staff recommends that the subject rezoning application be approved under the temporary use provision of Section 39 of the Planning Act to permit the proposed country festival as a permitted use on the subject lands for the inclusive period of September 20th, 2017 to September 27th, 2017. And staff would further recommend council approve the draft amendment as outlined by attachment 2 in the provided report, and the applicant enter into an agreement with the township specifying conditions under which the use may be permitted.
Thank you, Mr. Bertoli. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Back? Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 10, with regards to the deposit for, just to ensure if there's any damage on the currently constructed line 6, how much is that amount that you're asking?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Back, I think this is best referred to the Director of Public Works. Community Services, sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Lori and I have yet to discuss what the security would be for the road as of yet, although we could get a pretty quick estimate on that if need be.
It would be nice to know, just because I think the organizers also would like to know if within their budget they have that amount currently in it, or how they would be able to get it. And then another question would be, if we were to waive that today, obviously I'd like to know what that deposit would have been. What would happen if there was damage and we waived that deposit? Then what happens?
To you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, if we don't get a deposit and there is damage to the road, then we would seek through the applicant to reimburse for that, which would be a little more cumbersome to get because there isn't already a deposit.
Is there any way to do a quick tabulation? Councillor Back, I believe Ms. Knutson can provide us with the estimate.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, and the Director and Kevin. Lori and I had a brief discussion a couple of weeks ago on this matter, and she said typically it would be a minimum of $750,000 to secure an event on a partially finished road.
And that would be the deposit that we would be requesting? Okay, not sure if Mrs. Ayers over there has heard that, how many zeros was in that, but okay. I don't know if she made the same face I did. You can't look at the footage back on the back. Yes.
And that's why staff is putting that option to council to either waive it or reduce it. Typically, if it was a site plan application for a non-charitable event, that is the amount or more that we would be seeking for deposit.
Okay, and I suspect there may be an amendment coming forward when we get to that portion of the agenda. So further to that, what can what can the organizers do to prevent damage to that road at the event, so that, I know that it said to enter off of 12, so then obviously that point has not been constructed yet. Like, that's a lot of money, and there's no way if something was damaged that they'd be able to repay that. So how do we prevent it from occurring?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, at this point it's hard to know exactly what stage the road will be constructed in. The best case that it will be base asphalt the entire length of the road. The most likely case it will be base asphalt from Highway 12 to the property, in which case we wouldn't expect any significant damage to happen. It's possible, if the weather continues as it has been, or if some other issues come up, that it could be gravel for a portion or all of that stretch. I don't see the damages being near $750,000. I don't see a situation where that would happen. Then there's not much the organizers can do. They'll have access from Highway 12. It's possible they won't have access from the other direction. We won't know until much closer to the date what stage the construction's at.
Any further questions, Councillor Back? Councillor Drew?
Thank you. Is there any possibility you could get access from the 8th through Taylor Boulevard?
To do that, there'd have to be a temporary access road built from Taylor Boulevard, and we suggested that to the applicant. as a possibility.
And that's not feasible.
It's feasible, but there's a cost associated with it, and I don't,
So there's a cost, that's a definite cost associated with that, whereas if we go the other route via Highway 12 along 6th, there's a possible cost to it, but perhaps not. So I guess that is the best option then. Thank you.
Any further questions from council? Councillor Kett?
Basically, my question was the same as Councillor Drew's through Northport, but I believe there's an entrance on Northport already to that property. I know the property fairly well.
Mr. Arsenault, are you able to advise if there is a access there?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kett, there may be access there. I don't think it would be considered a legal entrance. I believe there is a 1-foot reserve there, so it may be accessed from time to time, but I don't believe it's constructed for an entranceway.
I believe they only need it for time to time from one or 2 days.
Thank you, Mr. Kett. At this point, we don't have ideas of the condition of the road, so we'll have to proceed as if it's not there. Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Mrs. Ayers, is there anything that you would like to add to the discussion? You're able to come up to a microphone if you would like, if there's anything further you'd like to add. And if you need your posse to come with you, they're welcome to come as well. If you'll need to come to the microphone, Margie, just so everyone that watches this on YouTube can hear what you're saying. And just make sure the red button is pressed so that we can hear you loud and clear.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make it clear that the event is a one-day event. We have it from the 20th to the 27th, just so that we can get the tent up if there's rain and bring it down without rain, if possible. So the event actually takes place on the Saturday, September 23rd. That is it.
Are there any questions? Councillor Back?
Hi, Margaret. So obviously you have insurance on this event. Is there a part of your insurance, does it cover if something were to happen to the damage of the road?
I will check. Through Madam Mayor.
I will check, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What it covers, I know liability insurance that we have, $5 million, but I'm not sure how the road is playing that.
That might be something to look into just in case, because I know, there's no way that you would be profiting that amount, and we wouldn't want that you're financially in hardship trying to do good. If you could look into that, could I make a motion that we do waive the deposit for Big Brothers and Sisters to put for that, for the road now, based on if it's included in your insurance policy?
Councillor Back, when we get to the portion of the agenda, right now it's just the public meeting. So when we do, we will ask for an amendment to the motion, but we will get there. Any further questions? Perfect, thank you very much. So now we're going to hand this over to the audience. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak to this application, please proceed to the microphone and state your name and municipal address for the record. Okay. Seeing as though there are none, are there any further questions from council? Okay. Members of, yes, sure. Councillor Watton?
I just have one question. Were there any written submissions with respect to this application? Or in regards to it? Ayes or nays or?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Watton, no, we did not receive anything.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Members of council, I now call for a motion on the staff report that begins on page 3 of your agenda. I have it moved by Councillor Watton and seconded by Councillor Drew. The motion reads that the report with respect to zoning bylaw amendment application Z 04/2017, Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Durham, 1401 Scugog Line 6, be received, information and recommendation report be received, and that application to amend zoning bylaw 1414 submitted by Margaret Ayers on behalf of Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Durham to temporarily rezone the subject lands to allow a country festival fundraising event as permitted use from September 20th, 2017 to September 27th, 2017 be approved, and that the zoning bylaw amendment appended as attachment 2 to this report be approved, and that the application enter into agreement with the township, the applicant be entered into an agreement with the township specifying the conditions under which the use may be permitted. Are there any questions to this motion? At this point, are there any amendments to this motion? Councillor Back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could amend that the deposit for, that the deposit required with regards to if there's significant damage to the road be waived based on proof of insurance.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Can I propose, or can we propose, that the agreement with the township not require a financial security to repair any damage to the partially constructed Scugog Line 6? However, should repairs be required as a result of the event, staff will be directed to meet with Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Durham to discuss compensation.
May I add, though, that perhaps that Big Brothers Big Sisters looks into their current insurance coverage for the event and adds the road potential if there were to be damage to the insurance policy? Because if there is damage to the road, there's no way that this event would cover that, so it sort of covers them as well.
And I've added that, and that Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Durham existing policy to understand, welcome Councillor Somerville, if the road damages would be covered. Councillor Watton, do you accept this as a friendly amendment?
It didn't require proof of the road being covered? What you just read. You didn't say that the financial implications would be covered or need to be covered through their insurance, correct? You didn't read, it didn't read that way, that amendment.
That's not what I read. Would you like that?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
I don't, because
Okay.
I don't want to delay based on, if the insurance doesn't cover that, then, I mean, it can affect how the outcome. So I
No.
would rather it was not included in that.
So you accept it as a, beautiful. Okay, council, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Our next item on the agenda, I believe, are the Canada Day Advisory Committee meeting minutes. We have that moved by Councillor Drew, seconded by Councillor Watton. Are there any questions from council on these minutes? Okay. Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we're moving on to the bylaw. Being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1414 with respect to part lot 15, concession road 6. That's for... Oh, sorry. Now parts 1 and 2, Plan 40R-10590, Township of Scugog, a portion of land municipally known as 1401 Scugog Line 6, Ward 1, moved by Councillor Watton, seconded by Councillor Drew. All those in favor? Carried. And moving on to our confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Drew, seconded by Councillor Kett. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Oh,
the actual bylaw.
pardon me, sorry. The actual bylaw 50-17, confirming the proceedings of the regular council meeting held Monday, July 24th, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 24th day of July, and the deputy mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Moved by Councillor Drew, seconded by Councillor Watton. All those in favor? Carried. Now I call this meeting adjourned. Oh, no, I don't. Oh, can I have a mover to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Watton. Councillor Cat seconded. All those in favor? Carried. We're now adjourned. I hereby call this special council meeting to order. I would like to ask council if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest and nature thereof. Perfect, even though I did it right this time. We're going to move right into the public meeting. This special meeting has been called in accordance with Section 10.5 of the procedural bylaw to address a matter of emergency, that being the personal well-being and financial hardship to the applicant. I would like to ask at this point, I will now call upon Diane Knutson, Planning Technician, to provide a verbal report with respect to Z-03-2017 Faden Enterprises, Don and Faye Simmons at 426 Reach Street, to remove a holding H symbol from agricultural holding to permit construction of a single detached dwelling. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a statutory public information meeting being held under Sections 34 and 36 of the Planning Act. It is important that the public express their views either in person or in writing prior to decisions being made by this council. Unlike the previous application, the only party able to file an appeal of the council's decision to the Ontario Municipal Board is the applicant. Public notice was served by the township in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Ms. Knutson, please proceed with your verbal presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On May 1st, an application to amend zoning bylaw 1414 was received from Carolyn Molinari, which is Messrs. Rondeau's planning consultant, on behalf of Faden Enterprises Limited, owned by Don and Faye Simmons, to lift the holding symbol from a portion of the property to permit the construction of a single detached dwelling on private services. The application was deemed complete on May the 9th and circulated for comments. A natural heritage review prepared by D.M. Wills Associate, dated April 28th, was submitted in support of the application. A scope natural heritage evaluation prepared by Oak Ridge Environmental was received and circulated to Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority on July the 19th. Purpose of this report is to present sufficient information for council to make a decision on the application today. Although a decision on this application is subject to a 20-day appeal period, as Madam Mayor indicated, it's only the applicant that can file an appeal with council's decision. Subject lands are located at 426 Reach Street in the northwest quadrant of the township. The total lot area is approximately 30 acres and is currently used as a farm field and is surrounded by significant woodlands and wetland areas. An intermittent stream traverses the site from east to west, beginning at a small pond situated on the adjacent property to the east, and the watercourse and wetlands appear to be part of a headwater system that ultimately discharges into the Beaver River more than 500 meters to the northwest. The lands surrounding the subject property are predominantly agricultural, with rural residences, and contain many of the same features. The Scope Natural Heritage Evaluation report included a study on the existing flora and fauna to determine whether the site currently exhibits any endangered or threatened species. It also takes into consideration an impact assessment of the proposed dwelling and private services on the significant woodland and wetlands areas of the property. Staff from Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority reviewed the initial report and provided comments to the township back on the 31st of May. Their comments indicated the need for a more detailed study in order to properly assess the proposal under the requirements of the Greenbelt Plan. The second study was received last Monday, and final comments were received from Lake Simcoe Region staff on Thursday. As the Conservation Authority requires that some specific conditions, and I'll get into that in a minute, be imposed as a result of the removing of the holding symbol, staff recommend that council approve the removal of the holding symbol, authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the applicant and the township to ensure that the site is developed in accordance with Lake Simcoe's requirements. This will require the owners to deposit appropriate refundable financial securities to the satisfaction of the township, and the site plan will be registered on the title of the lands prior to the issuance of any building permit. The specific requirements that, in addition to the recommendations that were included in the report, the conservation requires that some specific conditions extend the EP zone to come into the agricultural holding zone. We can't do that through this zoning bylaw amendment, and I believe they put this condition in because it's often assumed by our conservation authorities that you can't build in an EP zone. Our bylaw permits that you can under certain circumstances, and recognizing that there are requirements from the governing conservation authority to do so. The other requirement that we can instill is the installation of a fence or a living wall along the 30-meter vegetative protection zone that is just ahead of or north of the existing woodlands that are in this area here, and to implement an erosion and sediment control plan, and that will include the installation of silt control fencing initially, and to have it monitored throughout construction. And those are the conditions that we will add to the site plan agreement so that we can be sure that those conditions will be implemented through this construction. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Knutson. Any questions from Councilor? Councilor Drew?
Thank you. Diane, the conditions imposed by Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, that EP zone, are there going to be discussions with Lake Simcoe, or, what's going to happen with that particular provision?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Drew, I believe that we can include that condition in our housekeeping bylaw that will be coming forward in the late fall. We can move the EP lines in accordance with their conditions, so we will cover that within the site plan agreement, but the actual line won't be moved until we do the housekeeping bylaw, okay. And that should satisfy their concerns.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Councilor Bach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Ms. Knutson, what is the purpose of the retaining wall or the fence by the, to divide the woods from where, I don't understand, what is that requirement that you're adding?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Bach, there is the EP zone. I'll just go back up to this picture here. The EP zone takes into consideration the significant woodland here. Ahead of that, there's a 30-meter vegetative protection zone, which is actually the agricultural holding zone. So, the application, we're going to remove a portion of that hold so that they can build their home, and when we do the housekeeping bylaw, we're going to move this EP zone from the drip line of the trees up 30 meters so that the agricultural protection zone will actually be the EP zone. And that is to prevent any development or disturbance of any land behind that fence.
So, but what is the reason of actually having a fence? Like, is there not, could you not just have that is a requirement on the land, that there is to be no more building? Like, if you were to build another building, in theory, you need to come and get a building permit. That would trigger, if that has a holding on it, that there could be no more building. Like, why would the owner have to incur the expense of having this fence or a physical wall?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Bach, it is difficult to see on the ground where this 30-meter vegetative protection zone is, and that will delineate that there will be no development behind that fence. And it, as a fence, it's gonna be a row of trees, further trees to be put in there.
And is that a best practice? That's what normally is done?
That's what's recommended by the Conservation Authority, in this case, as well as a couple of more that I've dealt with, yes.
Are you done, Councillor Back?
I don't know if I'm done or not, I just am thinking.
Councillor Watton, you had your hand up?
Just further to Councillor Back's question, so the proposed location of the new dwelling is to the north of the fence line or whatever? It will be to the north of that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to
It's hard to
Councillor
see
Watton.
from those pictures.
Yeah, I know, this site plan's not very clear. This today is the environmentally protection zone, this line here.
Yeah.
This today is the 30-meter vegetative protection zone that the Conservation Authority requires, and the hold zone goes up and around like this. So there's even further agricultural holding. This is the portion of the property where we're going to lift the hold,
Right.
and then when we go to do the housekeeping bylaw, we're going to move this agricultural holding zone here up further. This zone in this space here will become environmentally protected, and then beyond that, a 30-meter zone around the property, around the developable area, I should say.
So the construction is to the north of the...
Yes,
Thank you.
to make it, in a nutshell, yes.
Councillor Cat?
Thank you. I just heard you say that they're going to put down silt fencing, and it will be periodically monitored. So who's going to do the policing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kett. Building staff will be out on the site for their inspections as well, and Conservation Authority, a permit is required from them for construction, and they will also be on the site from time to time to make sure that those requirements are met.
Thank you. Councillor Somerville?
Yes, just to, in pursuit, questions to the fence. You've got installation of a fence by the woodland, and then they want to implement an erosion and a silt fence. Now, can you just identify where each one of those are going?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Somerville, I believe the living wall or the fence will be installed along this line, the top of the EP zone, and the erosion and sediment control fence will be around the entire developing area. So this yellow part will mostly around the house where construction will happen. I believe the driveway is there, but it may not be in its final surface treatment, but definitely the silt control fence will be along the bottom of the developable area to prevent any construction dirt from getting into the wetland at the back of the property.
Okay, and is that going to be, you said double-checked by the building inspectors?
As well as staff from the Conservation Authority.
They will be out frequently?
Yeah. Building permit will not be issued until that sediment control fence is in place.
And you said how many days? It has to be, it can be any time then, I guess. It doesn't, okay, but there's a hold on it for, what did I read it, 20 days?
Mm-hmm. They can begin to put the fence in now.
Okay, that's fine. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Back?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just thinking here. So when does the natural wall or fence have to be installed? Is there a date that needs to be?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that will be installed once the construction is completed and final grade is in place.
Mm-hmm.
Then it will be installed after that.
And that won't be an eyesore for the owners to have such a thing at the back of their property?
I would expect it would be it'll just blend right into the forest that's there.
Okay, so it's not a physical fence, it's more of like a hedge or a...
Living wall is what the Conservation Authority calls it. They have different samples. Each Conservation Authority has those, and they're really quite spectacular.
And I guess spectacular, I guess they come with a huge cost too. Like, is it an expensive venture to do?
I would expect that, yes, it will be expensive.
Are there any other examples in the Scugog of such a thing?
Actually, the Walmart site had one at one time, but I don't know if it's still there or not, on Scugog Line 6, and it was really neat.
And it just vanished?
I have no idea. It may have vanished, or it may have turned into, as the trees matured, then the parts in between have gone away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Ms. Knutson. Mr. Rondo or Mr. West, is there anything else that you would like to add to the presentation? If there is, you can feel free to approach the front here and add anything additional. And if you do, if you can just make sure that the red button is pressed so that we can hear you loud and clear.
Through you, Mayor. That is an excerpt out of our report that kind of describes all the features on the site. One of the questions was about the living wall. One thing about the living wall compared to, say, a cedar rail fence and stuff, it can't be moved readily. Cedar rail fence, somebody can move it easily. It's less permanent than the living wall, so they've opted to go with that so that it defines the 30-meter mark on the property indefinitely. For instance, if they were to sell the property a year from now, that wall is growing into the ground and would be a permanent feature, and you would probably wonder why it's a permanent feature and maybe contact the township to see why it's there.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. West? Got off easy. Well done. Thank you. Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? If so, please proceed to the microphone and state your name and municipal address for the record. Seeing none, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this application? Any further questions from council? Lovely. Members of council, I now call on a motion that we have moved by Councillor Watton, seconded by Councillor Back, that the verbal report with respect to Z-03-2017 Faden Enterprises Limited, Don and Faye Simmons, 426 Reach Street, Lots 1 and 2, Concession 8, Ward 1, to remove a holding H symbol from the agricultural holding zone to permit construction of a single detached dwelling be received, and that staff be authorized to enter into a site plan agreement between Faden Enterprises and the Township of Scugog for property located in Parts 1 and 2, Concession 8, municipally known as 426 Reach Street, Ward 1, to ensure the site is developed in accordance with the requirements of Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority and any other agency having jurisdiction, and that staff be authorized to collect refundable financial securities to the satisfaction of the Township of Scugog, and that the site plan agreement be registered upon the title of this lands. Are there any questions to the motion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now this is the passing of the bylaw, being bylaw passed pursuant to the provisions of sections 34 and 36 of the Planning Act to amend zoning bylaw 1414 with respect to part lots 1 and 2, Concession 8, Township of Scugog, Ward 1. It's moved by Councillor Drew, seconded by Councillor Kett. That this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed the 24th day of July, 2017, and the Deputy Mayor and Clerk are hereby directed to sign same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. And our confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Watton, seconded by Councillor Back. All those in favor? Carried. Adjournment. Motion for adjournment by Councillor Watton, seconded by Councillor Somerville. Anyone opposed to this? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your summer.